You're listening to The Rant.
Welcome to a brand new beginning, you sorry shits.
Bigger and better and stronger.
Better, way better, been better.
Oh, hello. I know, right? Whose balls did I have to...
Excuse me?
Number one bullshit guy.
To The Rant.
This is such a crock of shit.
Sorry to keep you waiting, complicated business.
Imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
You're listening to The Rant with David King.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Rant. I am your host, David King. It's good to be here with you. Another week done. On to the next one. You may have noticed over the last few weeks in all of the media and everything else that a new recent proclamation by the federal government has come out stating that Tylenol causes autism. Now, this is interesting. We said to everybody, was kind of up in arms. It was like, before I get into it, it's weird to me that I don't know what happened. I was having this conversation with my wife the other day, and we were talking about doctors and medicine and procedures and should you get this test or should you do that test? And I kind of made this comment because it got me thinking. Somewhere between the time before I was born and now, we sort of blindly started to trust everything that the doctors told us. I can't tell you what it was like in 1920 because I didn't live then and we didn't live then. And we kind of have very little context as to how people felt about medical procedures or modern medicine or the practice of medicine. I think people at that time were excited about the advancement of medicine. I think people were anxious to learn how to cure whatever the problems that were plaguing the people of the time during that period. I'm certainly sure everybody was very excited and happy to find out that boiling water would disinfect it, or alcohol, or some sort of is a disinfectant that can be used to clean a wound. Right. I think people were always excited. We were always happy to advance in the medical, in the science, the world of science. We were always happy to move forward. And I do believe that continued on, and it continues on to this day to some degree. But there has been a sort of change. It's not the same. It was like you watch this thing. Well, there's a guy, he's a doctor. He specializes in this. They say he can cure that, but we're not sure. But if you're desperate enough, I swear to God, you might have just heard this in the background. I'm not trying to go off the subject, but you may have heard a vibration in the background, which was my phone vibrating on the desk. And I'm telling you, I would love to change the election laws in this country for no other reason than that I don't get stupid political text messages like every year, it feels like now. You know what I mean? Like it used to be, we have an election cycle almost pretty much every 2 years, sometimes more than that. It depends on how elections fall. You have your local, state, federal. You're being inundated with text messages. This time of year, never fails. Here it comes. If I have to get one more flippin' text message from Mike Collins telling me it's the same stupid text where it starts off as Georgia is my home. And I get it. I get it like every other day. I would love to change it where we go, can we go like every 10 years we have an election cycle? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I get it. Like, we got to have term limits. It's like, I get that and whatever, but it's almost too much. You know what I mean? It's too much. I got a freaking text message from a politician at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday. The auto text messaging thing we need to make it illegal. That's what we need. Because I've gotten automated text messages from like clothing apparel companies at like the butt crack of dawn. Like, I literally, one time, it was a Sunday morning. I was woken up before my alarm woke me up for church. I was woken up at like 7 a.m. No. Yeah. It would have been like 7 a.m. by a text message from Nine Line Apparel. You can bet your ass I hit unsubscribe to that. Whew. Let me tell you what. Oh my gosh. I'm so over it. I just put my phone on airplane mode because now everybody's texting me. Oh, it feels like these days my phone never stops vibrating. It'd be that way. Where was I? Oh, modern medicine. But seriously, we need to do something about the automated texts. The texts and everything. I'm tired of political ads. I'm tired of hearing about it. They're so ridiculous and absurd. John Ossoff wants to destroy Georgia. John Ossoff's been in office for a term, and I haven't even hardly heard anything. I couldn't even tell you what the guy's done. Has he even done anything? John Ossoff wants to destroy Georgia as you know it. Blah. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. Who's buying this crap? Probably the 60, 70, 80-year-old boomer who watches Fox News all day. He's sitting there going, oh my God, John Ossoff wants to destroy this state. We got to get out there and protest it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Here we go again. Can't wait. Listen, I'm not a John Ossoff supporter by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact of the matter is, like, the guy's been awfully quiet for the better part of his term. As far as I'm concerned, here's how I judge politicians, especially local ones, like especially state and local politicians. If I haven't heard about you, in other words, you're not in the news for something, you're not trying to raise my taxes. You haven't slept with the secretary. You didn't commit, perjury or fraud or run a Ponzi scheme. If you've been pretty quiet, like I judge that as probably like an A+. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at it. Like, if I haven't heard from you or heard about you, chances are you're probably not as bad as people were making you out to be. Now, does that mean you're doing a good job? No, not necessarily. And we could certainly look at that. But my point is, like, I haven't heard anything about Warlock or Ossoff. And honestly, that's probably not a bad thing, because I certainly hear shit about other people all the time. Like, it never fails. We hear about Kamala Harris isn't even in politics, and I have to hear about what she's doing. Her book deal. Anyway. Ugh. So here we are. There was a time in this country where I think we trusted our doctors, but we had this sort of trust but verify. We had this trust but speculation. The sort of kind of like, I don't know if it's going to work, but we don't have any other option kind of deal. There has turned now into this sort of blind, absolutism of like, whatever the doctor says is gospel. Whatever my doctor says is gospel. I have to listen to that. He's the doctor. He has the medical, he or she has the medical degree. I'm going to listen to everything they say. And that was amplified in 2020, where we have to trust the science. We need to listen to our scientists. I love how the media always kind of portrayed as if there's like this group of scientists that's in this lab. They work 24/7 and they're like the smartest people on earth, and they know everything, and they're so much smarter than us, and they may not, they don't get anything wrong. And when they come out and make a decree, we ought to bow and listen and say, yes, master. That is how the media portrayed scientists in the United States or in the world during COVID. And it was absolutely a joke. It was ridiculous. And they put Fauci on this sort of pedestal. Yeah, I was listening to this clip of The View where RFK's wife was on The View, and she was kind of defending RFK. And she was, talking about, they were like, of course, they're making their accusations about how dangerous RFK is because he spreads misinformation. Of course, they couldn't tell you what misinformation he's spreading. It's just that he's spreading misinformation, and he's an anti-vaxxer because he doesn't think that you need to have every vaccine on the vaccine list. So he thus must be an anti-vaxxer. Yeah, no, that's not how this works. And I'm tired of the absolutisms in everything that we deal with. It's like, oh, I'm against illegal immigration. Well, then you must be against immigrants. You're anti-immigration. You're a bigot. You're a xenophobe. You don't like Hispanic people. It's like, I'm so sick of these arguments, these low IQ, ridiculous arguments of like, well, you can't have any nuanced conversations with anybody at all, period, anymore. Because it's like, you're either this or that now. It's like they put you right in a corner, and they do that on purpose, because the moment someone can put you in a corner and they can label you something, then they can properly deal with you, right? If someone calls you a racist, to call you Hitler, then they're not obligated to even talk to you. You're the absolute worst thing on the face of, what is the worst person on the face of the earth? Actually, in reality, not actually Hitler. Mao and Stalin are actually far worse than Hitler. They killed far more people than Hitler did. But not the point. The point is, they call you the worst things in the world to shut you down, so they don't have to debate you, so they don't have to talk to you, because they don't know how to. So there's this absolutism. And she was on there, and, she was telling, I think it was Joy or whatever her name is. Not Joy Behar. I can't remember her name, but I don't watch The View. I couldn't watch. I would rather watch Jerry Springer is far higher IQ level than The View. Like, it's better. It's less trashy than The View in terms of what it is. But, she'd say, oh, your husband, he's spreading misinformation. He's dangerous. He's not qualified. He's the least qualified candidate to be an HSS, blah, blah, blah. And I don't agree with how she responded, but she said, like, well, let's talk about that for a moment, because during COVID, all of you were saying, you guys were talking about what Fauci said, and Fauci said this. And then, of course, she has to go. One of the pundits on that show responds, well, he's a doctor. He has a medical degree. Well, never mind the fact that Dr. Fauci hadn't been practicing medicine probably ever his entire life. He's been, at least in the federal government, in some aspect for the majority of his career. Oh, but he has a medical degree. We ought to listen to him. No, I don't care what listen, I give you credit. I listen to doctors every day, and I do put clout and weight into a medical degree or a medical background, or what is it you're studying? If you say, I went to medical school, I have my doctorate, I'm a doctor, and I study cancer. It's what I do day in and day out. I sit in a lab and I study cancer. So am I going to listen to you when you talk about cancer? Absolutely. Am I going to take it as gospel? Probably not. I mean, I may. It just depends. But I will probably at least go, that's interesting. It's a trust but verify sort of situation. Like, I trust what this guy is saying. That's an interesting theory that he's putting out there, but let's look into that. Dr. Fauci, what the hell was he doing? Other than, by the way, gain of function research. He was dealing with that man. So that's interesting. But other than that, what else has this guy been up to? Doesn't seem like a whole lot. And yet people blindly follow him. They didn't question. They didn't go, wait a minute, does that even make sense? They didn't bother to look at the game film. They didn't bother to check in 2019 that Dr. Fauci was telling the entire world that masks, really weren't an effective way to stop the spread of disease. He made the same comments that I made on this podcast prior to the ramp up of COVID, which was masks don't make sense to me because you're touching your face more now. Your hands are the dirtiest part on you, because your hands touch everything. And then you're touching your face to adjust your mask. So you touch the gas pump, you touch the door to go into a building. That door's been touched by thousands of people. It's got germs all over the handle. And now you've touched it. Those germs are on your hand. And now you're fiddling with your mask, which is on your face. Where does this make any sense? And I said that. We lost our collective fucking minds in 2020, period. We did. I didn't. I was the only rational, sane person. I didn't lose my mind. I knew this was bullshit. My wife knew it was bullshit. She owns a professional marketing company. I was a guy in construction. I'm a contractor. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. And you had doctors. We're like, we got to trust the scientists. The problem is you weren't living by what you were preaching. You said we have to listen to people with medical degrees. Well, there were people with medical degrees and doctors who were coming out saying, hey, this doesn't make very much sense. Why are we treating COVID like this? COVID is this sort of virus. This is what it does. It's very similar to the flu. Why are we acting this way over COVID? Why are we treating it this way? And they got told to shut up. They got canceled. They had some of these people, I think, lost their license to practice. Or at least at the very least, they were threatened to lose their licenses to practice medicine because they weren't going along with the narrative. Speaking of no kings event, you want to talk about some no king bullshit? Y'all motherfuckers were becoming the kings. You were the ones who were bringing on the king and listening to whatever the king decreed in 2020. You want to talk about no kings? You want to sit here and tell me that I elected a king? No, I did not. I am the opposite of that. So there's this issue of absolute, you gotta trust the science only if the science agrees with you politically. Only if it agrees with you politically. If Dr. Fauci came out and said that Tylenol potentially caused autism, everybody on The View would be clapping and applauding him and raising him up and cheering him on and going, whoa, good for you, Dr. Fauci. You're such a hero. He's a hero, everybody. Yay. But no, RFK, the defector, the man that said, I had enough of this party, I'm going to the other side. He comes out with this decree. It wasn't like he was in the lab with a microscope himself doing it. He's simply just repeating what the studies that he had going on. He's just repeating studies from scientists, the people we're supposed to trust. He's repeating that. And that's bullshit. He's a liar. What are pregnant women supposed to take? They're in pain. He's absurd. Here's my thing. If you want to take Tylenol while you're pregnant, then do it. It's up to you, but you ought to know the risks involved. And guess what? Tylenol even said, we don't recommend you taking our product when you're pregnant. Huh, fancy that. Something changed. Something changed in my lifetime where we just go, yep, they said it's this, it must be this. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. I can't wrap my head around it. We have this idea about what food is good for us, what food is bad for us. We have this idea of like, oh, well, they say da-da-da-da-da is bad. Da-da-da-da-da is bad. My dad always makes the comment, he doesn't believe anything any of these guys say because he grew up in the time where they would say, oh, eggs are bad for you. And then, oh, no, but eggs are, no, we're wrong. Eggs are okay. It's just egg whites. And then they would say, oh, no, we're wrong. It's egg yolks, you know what? Fuck it. We don't know. We have no idea. Forget about it. We just don't know. The reality of it is the egg is a superfood. I've always said this. I'm not trying to go off on a rabbit hole here, but if I could only eat one food for the rest of my life, it'd be eggs. If you had to pick one thing, probably be eggs. It has everything you need. Anyway, he's been a doubter too. We have to get into this sort of trust but verify mentality, or start to use common sense. I know we're all busy. Your kids go to like 7 different sports events that you have to take them to because you think they're going to be the next, the next Tom Brady. Oh, my kid's a left-handed pitcher. He's going to the show. No, he's not. Shut up. But you're going to take him to 12 different baseball games and travel all over Timbuktu and waste his life and yours thinking that he's going to make it to the MLB when he's really not. So I get it. We're all busy. We don't have time to fact check. We don't have time to verify. We just have to trust the leaders. Well, who's the leader? That's the problem in all of this. Who is the leader in the room? Everyone gave Trump such a hard time in 2020 about how he handled COVID. I will agree with everybody. I think he mismanaged COVID. I think he could have done a better job. I do think he leaned on the people that he thought were experts in his circle, the Dr. Fauci's. He leaned on those people to give him the advice and the best advice. I think he did the best he could with what he had to work with. He is not a doctor. He's never claimed to be a doctor. He's not going to know everything there is to know about COVID. He's just not going to. Just like you and I wouldn't. No president in the history of this country had the answers and the expertise on everything. That's why they have a cabinet. That's why they have people who advise to them. They have advisors for that reason. And I think he got screwed over. I think that turned into a whole political hit job. I'm not going to go down that path today. But who are we trusting? Because these folks that we claim to trust, they're not elected officials. Nobody ever is. So wouldn't it be best if we go, somebody made a claim. Let's look this up and find out if it's true or not. Now, there are people that I trust quite a bit with medical information because I have been following them for some time. There's one doctor who I definitely trust a lot. That's Dr. Paul Saladino. I trust him because he has shown his ability to change. He has the ability to tell you, I got something wrong, or I wasn't totally right on something. I thought it was this, but actually it can be this as well. And I trust that. I like somebody when you're a doctor and when you're a scientist, you're a scientist. I don't know. It's weird. It's like, I don't know. You don't call a tile guy a builder. You know what I mean? Like, tile guy, a guy that lays tile for a living, he's not a builder. He's a tile guy. That's his trade. He's a tile guy. And I just think like he's a scientist. It just seems like a cheesy movie to me. Like, we got to trust him. He's a scientist. Anyway, sorry. But people like him who are actively, studying, learning, practicing, when they go, you know what? I have been on this. I have said this for the last year and a half, but through some study and some research and my own experience, I have found that actually it's this instead. That to me shows that you're a legitimate scientist. You're a legit scientist. Why? Because science is an absolute. There's no absolutes in science. Science is hypotheses, right? And we all remember science class, right? I know a lot of us don't, because we clearly don't by how everybody's acting right now in the general public, because they take science as something that's gospel. It's gospel. It's Dr. Fauci said it, so it must be true. No. Not even. Especially when he's contradicting himself. And then the best part about it is like Dr. Paul will say, yeah, I was in this camp for this while. I've done some research and found out it's this, and this. Here's all my evidence. Here's all my facts to back that up. And yeah, I got it wrong, but here's my evidence to back it up. You ask Dr. Fauci about the video of him talking about masks. He just, I don't know what you're talking about. Listen, I don't want to get into the weed here. You just need to wear a mask. You got to wear a mask. If you wear a mask, you'll stop the spread of COVID. I was wrong. Doesn't give you any information. Doesn't give you any facts. He tries to deflect. He tries to pass it off. That's how you know he's a fraud. That's how you know anybody's a fraud, period. When people can't admit that they were wrong, or people can't admit and go, maybe I've been on the wrong side of this. Here's the evidence to suggest that I was. They refuse to change. Then they're not people that you should rely on. And I think we've seen that in droves over the last 5 or 6 years, especially in the medical community. Let's use our common sense brain. I tell people ask me all the time, Dave, why do you think this? Why do you think that? And I simply go, I try to just look at it from a common sense point of view. And in the world of healthcare, that's how I look at it. You know, when I started to research diet and exercise, you know, a healthy lifestyle, this process, this journey I went on went way long before just a few years ago. It was back in the Marine Corps. I was trying to figure out how to optimize my health, how I could feel better. Because especially in the Marine Corps and prior to the Marine Corps, I was having stomach issues. They became less frequent in the Marine Corps, but they were still there. And I'm like, what is up with my stomach? So I started to do some research and I found out that what you eat matters. And eventually I got to this point where I said, okay. Well, how did I get to the point where I thought animal-based or no sugar, no grain were the best diets to go on? Well, it just made sense. It was common sense to me, period. It was, what would we have ate 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago? Would we have been eating Doritos? No. Would we have been eating a processed hamburger from a fast food joint? No. Now let's look at the chart. Let's look at the chart of heart disease, atherosclerosis, diabetes. Let's look at the numbers and how they've gone up with the rate of something else. Well, Dave, you know, red meat causes heart disease. No, it doesn't. There's not a study in the world that can prove conclusively that heart disease is caused by saturated fat and red meat. There's not a study in the world. They're all observational and inconclusive. They are so biased studies. They're awful. And all you have to do is just look at the numbers. Meat consumption in the United States is down. Heart disease is still on the rise. So if red meat and saturated fat cause heart disease, then we should see at least a dip in the category of heart disease in the United States with the decrease of meat consumption. But we don't. We don't. And I should say the decrease of red meat, not necessarily chicken or pork, but red meat. Red meat causes heart disease. It's such a load of crap. So I look at those numbers. Then I just think about myself. I go on a diet. I do this diet for several months, a year, and I figure out, how does it make me feel? Do I lose weight? Do I gain energy? Do I feel better? Yeah, I do. Interesting. How do I feel when I ate a Chick-fil-A sandwich or in French fries? Pretty freaking terrible. I would get itchy. I would get tired. I would get lethargic. I'd want to take a nap. How do I feel when I eat a steak that I threw on the grill? I eat a New York strip steak with salt and pepper that I grilled with maybe a sweet potato with a little bit of butter. How do I feel after I eat that? I feel great. I don't feel tired. I don't feel like I need to go take a nap. Don't feel like I need to go sit in front of the TV. I think I can go and keep doing whatever I want to do. In fact, sometimes I feel like I'm ready to go do more. I'm ready to go and tackle something else. It's like I get a boost of energy. Think about how you feel when you do something. Think about how it affects you long term when you do something. It's not rocket science. What should we eat as humans? Well, what would we have ate before, all this technology, before the Industrial Revolution, what were we eating before? Well, we were hunting, fishing, scavenging. We would eat things that we found naturally occurring on Earth. We weren't eating processed food. So does it make sense to me then that we should be eating an animal-based diet of meat and fruit, raw dairy, vegetables if you can tolerate them? Then yeah. Whole food? Yeah. Like fresh whole food? Yes, that's what we should eat. Is it going to kill you? No. You may have some negative side effects from vegetables, and I would say that you should pay attention to your body and maybe decide whether or not you should eat vegetables. I like broccoli, but broccoli hates me. I have to eat it in very low amounts. I can only have a little bit of broccoli. I can have like a half a cup for a serving. If I start to have any more than that, it just destroys me. I don't eat spinach. I don't eat leaf. I try to avoid leafy greens, period. They don't do well for me. Fruit, I can eat fruit all day. It's no problem. Red meat, I can destroy red meat, feel great. So you just got to listen to yourself. And I say all this to say that nothing is absolute. Nothing about what I'm about to talk to with you is necessarily absolute. But let's think about the Tylenol and autism thing before I get into this email I got from Paul Saladino, which outlines really some great facts about Tylenol and autism. Nothing is absolute, but let's think about this. Did we always have Tylenol? No. What is Tylenol? Tylenol is a synthetic pain blocker, right? It's not something that you go out in the woods, you pick a berry, you eat the berry, and the berry helps with something. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, we've taken this plant and we kind of ground it up and made it into a tea, and you drink this tea and it helps relieve this. It's not like that. Is that to say that synthetic drugs are bad? No, not necessarily. But every synthetic drug that's ever been created, they all have side effects. And this is the issue that I have, and this is kind of the problem, and this is the thing I've talked about for so long, is that, I really don't like passing blame on boomers, but this is a boomer thing. Boomers just like blindly trust doctors. They just go with it. I don't know if it's because of their, like, not every, I hate speaking in absolutes, and I hate saying that all boomers are selfish and they're all just kind of out for themselves, but the majority of the boomer population is. Like 99% of the problems that we're dealing with in this country is because of the boomers and their ridiculous behavior and their attitudes. Are all of them that way? No, not all. There's a lot of great boomers out there. I'm not going to sit here and paint with a broad brush because I hate doing that. But as a whole, there's a lot there to unpack. And one of the things that I noticed with boomers is their kind of sort of lackadaisical approach with medicine. They go to a doctor. The doctor says, take this pill. Okay. You don't want to ask any questions about it? No, why? He told me I need to take it. He says, he says, I've got this, this, and this. I need to take this pill. Yeah, but you don't want to know, like, is there any side effects, or maybe there's a better way? Maybe there's a way where you don't have to be on a medication. No, I mean, who cares? I got insurance. They'll pay for it. Okay, cool. So let's think about this for a minute and let's unpack it. Are there any side effects to the medication the doctor puts you on? I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. Okay, great. Do you really want to pay for a prescription medication for the rest of your life? Oh, I have insurance. I have Medicare. It's fine. I don't have to pay for it. You are going to pay for it. Someone's going to pay for it. But thank you. Let's continue. Are you afraid of the long-term ramifications from being on a medication? Doctor said it's safe. He says he prescribes this all the time. It's a perfectly safe drug. It's been around for a long time. Okay. So we've established three things. One, you're not interested in any of the side effects, or for the matter, two, the long-term side effects of this drug. And three, you think because you're not having to pay for it, nobody's paying for this drug. You think that by the greatness of God himself and the pharmaceutical companies that this pill is free for you because you're on Medicare or you pay into your health insurance. Never mind the fact that the health insurance is like, oh, okay, we're paying for another medication. Guess what? That money is going to somebody else. Somebody else is going to foot that bill. You have people downriver of you who are young adults who are getting health insurance going, why am I paying so much for health insurance? Well, it's because you're paying for the guy who's 65 years old and on 12 different medications. And he never bothered to ask his doctor, do I really need to be on all these medications? Should I be on all these medications? Is there something I can do in my day-to-day life that could, where I don't have to be on this because I really don't want to be for no other reason than there's probably going to be a side effect, because there's always a side effect. All of these medications have side effects to some degree. That is why so often you get put on 3 or 4 different medications, because you take the pill for your main issue, then that has a side effect. So they give you another pill for that side effect. And then eventually that pill creates a side effect. So now they have to give you a pill for this one. And oh, hey, by the way, it throws your thyroid out of whack. So now we got to balance out your thyroid. So we put you on these other medications. And before you know it, man, you're in the system. They got you. I always ask myself, is there a way that I can fix something on my own first? I'm not here to talk bad about modern medicine. I am not an anti-vaxxer. I think vaccinations have their purpose. I think everybody should do their due diligence, their research, and feel out for themselves. And if you want to do something, then do it. If you want to take a medication, then do it. If you want to go on GLP-1s, go ahead, but just understand there's some major side effects of it. Guaranteed. My point of all this, and I went down this rabbit hole of rambling, is that Tylenol is not a naturally occurring thing in our life. It's just not. So could it be safe to say that if you take Tylenol on occasion, it's harmless? Sure. If you take Tylenol often, could it have an effect? Absolutely, because it's not a normal, natural thing. It's like we always say everything in moderation. That is my rule of thumb. Everything in moderation in your life. Never in excess. If you eat too much ice cream, you're going to get fat, sick, and diabetic, right? If I eat too much of anything, it could make me sick. I'm just saying, like, you want to, I would say, well, if you eat too much steak, something will happen, but it's like, you would really be hard pressed to eat too much steak. You would probably just overeat. And I don't know what would happen to you, but I would love to know anybody who could overeat steak. That would be very difficult to do. It's like extremely satiating food. That's one of the reasons why it's hard to get fat when all you eat is meat. It's almost impossible. Anyway, digress. My point is, Tylenol is not like a natural thing. So why is it, that's the way we have to approach it. So when I saw headline, Tylenol may cause autism, I go, yeah, maybe it does. Tylenol is not something that you should be, to me, it's not benign. It's not safe. It's something you take when you absolutely have to. You know what I mean? It's not something that you should willy-nilly just take. Oh, it's like, oh, I've got like a little soreness, I'm going to take some Tylenol. Like, no. Sometimes you just got to suck it up. You know what I mean? Suck up the pain. My muscles are sore. I slept a little wrong. So I'm in a little bit of pain. It's like, yeah, that sucks. But maybe suck it up and get through it. Especially if you're someone who constantly is dealing with sore or achy muscles, you may want to be very careful about how much Tylenol or whatever you're taking. Do not blindly, and then on top of that, do not make this political just because RFK announced it to the world. But in case you had any doubts about Tylenol and autism, let's get into what a great email this was. Dr. Paul Saladino, and I will include a link to his website in my notes, along with all the studies that he references. His email said this: the media went crazy. Fact checkers rushed to debunk the Tylenol and autism proclamation. But here's what they conveniently leave out. Acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, has been used since 1886 and given to pregnant women and infants since the 1960s. And yet, serious studies on its effects on the developing brain didn't begin until about 2014. For over 100 years, we gave this drug to pregnant women without testing brain effects. Over 50 studies before approval all tested liver safety only. They only tested the liver safety. Meanwhile, autism diagnosis went from incredibly rare in the 1940s to 1 in 31 children today. The timeline should make anyone raise their eyebrows. 1982 to 83, medical switch from aspirin to acetaminophen for kids. Mid-1980s, autism rates start to climb. 1990s, autism explodes. Look, I'm not saying that Tylenol explains every single case, and I would agree with this. In fact, there was a great podcast where he had a doctor on that was talking about parasitic infections. And parasitic infections, they're starting to realize might be the cause. Might be the cause for a lot of the issues that we face as humans, a lot of the autoimmune issues or the other problems we face, including autism or sort of special needs. I will try to include a link to that episode. It's with Evan Brand. He's a doctor who he completely specializes in basically parasitic infections. What they do is you go, hey, I've got this symptom. This is how I feel. Maybe it's chronic. Maybe I'm chronically tired. Maybe I'm always sick. Maybe my stomach's always upset, this, that, or the other, blah, blah, blah. And basically, he will do a series of tests, non-invasive, just blood test. They'll do stool samples, and they'll look as they're looking for a parasite. And they've got like a whole list. There's like thousands of them that you can get. And there was one particular they had a kid, he was severe special needs, non-functioning, nonverbal, I think it's nonverbal autism or something like that. And the mother had caught wind that they were doing a sort of program where they were saying, hey, we may be able to help. It may not cure him of his disease, or of a person's autism, or, if they have a learning disorder or something, it may not cure them, but it might help, because we're starting to think that some of this might be parasitic infections. And so this woman heard that and reached out and said, hey, my son is nonverbal, really bad, has to be in a special class, he can't function, he can't do anything, cannot communicate, basically gets put into the special needs class and is just pretty much sits there. You know what I mean? He's basically managed. He's not going to have a life. Not a normal life anyway. And so they brought him in, they ran tests, and they did this sort of treatment for it. They believed it was a parasite of a certain sort. I don't remember the full details. You'll have to listen to the podcast to know. But he basically, they said he was on this treatment for 6 months, I think 6 months or almost a year. And he got remarkably better to the point where he was communicating. He was able to speak. He was moved out of the special education class to a regular class, and began to show signs of improvement. So there are things, and I know a lot of people go, oh, that sounds so far-fetched, but it's like, is it though? Is it? I mean, think about how much we don't really know about things. We think we know everything about health and wellness, but we really don't. And some of the problems that we have in today's society are created by us. Much of the problems we have is because of the food we eat, or the fact that we're around so many chemicals, or everything is wrapped in plastic now. And we create so many of the issues, and we don't even realize it until it's too late. And so people go, there's no way that this guy cured autism because with some, herbal remedies for parasitic infection. How do you know? Go look at it yourself. Maybe he did. Maybe it was a breakthrough case. Maybe it's a once in a lifetime thing. The point is, we need to approach these things with an open mind. We cannot have absolutism in medical and science. And we've gotten to that point, and it's making it very difficult for us to have these sort of conversations of like, could we cure autism? Could we cure somebody who has a mental disability? Could we do that? Could it be something as simple as there's a parasitic infection? I don't know, but let's get back to it. He said, look, I'm not saying Tylenol explains every single case, but the convergence of evidence makes it impossible to ignore. And the biochemistry alone should make you pause. Here's where the science gets dark. Your body processes acetaminophen via two distinct pathways. Phase 2, metabolism, the safe route. Your liver adds molecules through glucuronidation and sulfation, making it water-soluble so you can pee it out safely. Phase 1, metabolism, the toxic route. Your body tries to burn the acetaminophen through cytochrome P450 oxidation, creating an NAPQI, a highly reactive molecule that depletes glutathione, your master antioxidant, and damages mitochondria. Adults, mostly safe route, very manageable. Babies, completely different story. Newborn livers have virtually zero glucuronidation capacity for the first few weeks of life. Every veterinarian knows domestic cats can't process acetaminophen because they lack glucuronidation. Yet we didn't connect the dots. So when acetaminophen crosses the placenta during pregnancy, or when a newborn gets Tylenol directly, most gets shunted through the toxic pathway. Again, that's phase 1 metabolism, the toxic route. I'll restate it because it is kind of confusing. Your body tries to burn the acetaminophen through cytochrome P450 oxidation, creating an NAPQI, a highly reactive molecule that depletes glutathione, that's your master antioxidant, and damages mitochondria. Okay, so that's the toxic way to burn it versus turn it into a molecule through glucuronidation, and sulfation, so you can just pee it out. So again, it says when acetaminophen crosses the placenta during pregnancy, or when a newborn gets Tylenol directly, most gets shunted through the toxic pathway, and not just in the liver, but in the developing brain, right where cytochrome enzymes turn into toxic byproducts during the most critical period of neural development. Add to that the fact that the fact that right at birth is the absolute worst time for exposure. Before birth, the mother's liver does the detox work, protecting the baby. But after the cord is cut, the mother's protection is gone. The baby's liver isn't ready yet to deal with acetaminophen. They're completely vulnerable. And this is why the connection gets missed. Half of all autism cases are triggered right around birth. But you don't see symptoms until about 18 to 24 months later. Parents don't connect a Tylenol dose at delivery to regression at 18 months. The triggering event and diagnosis are separated by years. Now, the obvious question people ask here is, why some kids and not others? Many will say it's just genetics, but it's not that simple. Think about it like this. If everyone smoked cigarettes, lung cancer would look purely genetic too. Some people would get it, some wouldn't. You'd blame their genes for the susceptibility to lung cancer and completely miss that smoking was the trigger. That's pretty much what's happening with autism and Tylenol, if you ask me, Dr. Paul Saladino. It's so ubiquitous. 40 million adults take it weekly that it's become statistically invisible. What's actually genetic? 4 critical vulnerability points. 1. Slow glucuronidation development. All babies start at 0, but some take much longer to develop this safe pathway. 2. Poor sulfation. The other safe pathway, studies from the 90s showed kids with autism are genetically deficient at this. 3. Depleted glutathione. 72% of autistic kids have antibodies that block folate receptors. Without folate, you can't make glutathione. 4. Can't repair cellular damage. Some kids just can't fix what gets broken. And that makes total sense. Stack enough of these vulnerabilities at the wrong developmental window, and you get the perfect storm for neurological injury. Still skeptical? The data is piling up. Cord blood study. Mothers divided into 3 groups by acetaminophen levels at birth. They found a 4x increased risk of autism with higher exposure. That's PubMed study number 31664451. Again, all these studies will be copied and pasted in the description so you can look them up yourself. Animal study 2014. 2 doses before day 10 cause permanent brain changes. Males more affected. PubMed 243-61869. Neuronal death. Even non-lethal doses kill brain cells in developing animals. PubMed study 211-70329. Systematic review in 2025. 46 studies. The stronger the study design, the stronger the association. PubMed 408-04730. But, he says, what about the studies debunking it? He says those studies are incredibly misleading. Let's consider the biggest one, which followed 2.5 million Swedish births. They compared siblings, one exposed in utero and one not. When they did this, the Autism Association disappeared. PubMed study 385-92388. Key word here, siblings. That means this design controls for shared genetics, shared environment, and shared family factors. So all this proves is that among families with no genetic susceptibility to acetaminophen toxicity, the drug doesn't cause autism. In other words, it's safe if you're not already genetically vulnerable. But what about the kids with vulnerabilities? By design, this study filters them out. That's almost like testing peanuts only on people with peanut allergies, then concluding peanuts are safe for everyone. True for the majority, useless for the genuinely at risk. So, my hypothesis is thus. If people stopped using acetaminophen during pregnancy, labor and delivery, and first 3 years of development, especially the first few months, we could potentially see autism rates drop dramatically within 18 to 24 months. I know that's a very controversial statement, but when you understand that infants can't safely metabolize this drug, that we weren't seriously looking into this until 2014, that the timing of widespread use perfectly matches autism explosion, you can't really unsee it. So, maybe we're right to force this conversation, because if there's even a 50% chance this prevents half of autism cases, isn't that worth taking seriously? Absolutely it is. But the problem we have is this is very political. And I truly believe that if we could just put the politics aside and not even talk about who's mentioning Tylenol and autism, I would say that we can maybe have a legitimate conversation and move past it and try something different. Move on from the Tylenol conversation. I actually think there's several factors, and I've said this and I'll say it now and I'll get ready to wrap up here. But those first developmental years of your child's life, there's this sort of trend that was going around. I don't know if people are still doing it. I hope they stop. But it was like the smash cake trend. It was like the first birthday of a baby. They get them a cake and they smash it and they take the picture and they think it's cute. I've always said like that is the most wild thing you could possibly do is give your child processed sugar, like artificial food coloring, processed seed oils, processed grains that are high in, glyphosate. All of that is in those cakes, and you're giving this as a child in its most important stages of development, in the development. I can tell you right now, if I were having a kid, if my wife was pregnant and she was about to pop and have a baby, that baby would not have any kind of processed sugar, cake, sweets, artificial food dyes, none of it. It would have none of that for at least the first 3 years of its life. I would put my foot down. I would not allow it. Would not allow it. No candy. None of that. None of those puffed grains, none of the baby puffs that you see, those little snacks that they give the babies. It's basically like baby Cheetos. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Why? Because the first three years or so are its most important developmental stages of a child. This baby is growing. It's growing into its body. Its brain is developing. Its body is developing. You are setting the foundation. In that first 3 years, you are setting the foundation for what is going to happen to this child for the rest of its life. And you have an opportunity for those first 3 years to make sure you feed it healthy, real, whole food and not processed foods, not processed sugars, seed oils, or any of the stuff that's going to trigger an immune response that could hinder its growth, especially like Tylenol. Well, what kind of painkiller should we give the child if it's in pain? Well, we can figure that out. There is aspirin. It may be more benign. We certainly can look into that. There's other opportunities in extreme cases. Again, extreme cases, if your baby gets really sick and it has to have something, then yes. Again, this goes all the way back to the original conversation of just medication in general. If your doctor wants to prescribe you something, ask the questions. Is there another way? Is there a better way to do this? Is there a way that's not going to lock somebody in on a prescription pill? Is there a way that we can avoid Tylenol for my child who was just born because I'm afraid it could affect their brain development? It's a fair question to ask. Is there another pain reliever? Maybe it's not nearly as effective, but it's safer. Aspirin, maybe. I don't know. These are questions you should ask. Listen, I cut my finger with a box cutter and I thought I might need stitches. I ended up not needing stitches, but the doctor wanted to prescribe me an antibiotic so it wouldn't get infected. Do you realize how insane that is? Do you understand? I want everybody who ever hears this podcast, if you don't hear anything else, hear this. You should absolutely, positively, 110% do everything you can to avoid taking an antibiotic. Why? An antibiotic is a nuclear bomb to your gut. Your gut is so important. Your gut affects everything in your body. Your gut affects the health of your mouth, the health of your brain, the health of your other organs. It is so important. There's a mitochondria in your gut. There's good bacteria in your gut that keeps everything stable, helps you digest food, helps you pull out and extract nutrients. And when you take an antibiotic, it causes a nuclear wasteland. It kills everything. That's why you feel so messed up after you take an antibiotic, because it's why you can't go to the bathroom. It's why sometimes you get sick. Sometimes you get like a bladder infection. You should do everything you can to avoid that. And this guy was just going to write me a script like, yeah, so your cut and your finger doesn't get affected. Brother, I washed it with soap and water. What are we doing here? That's insane that it would just give that out so willy-nilly like that. And that's what we do. That's what doctors are doing. They're like, yeah, take a pill, take this. Don't worry about it. The pharmaceutical rep said safe. Everybody does it. Just go on it. But never mind the fact that it could cause severe side effects, which could create life-changing problems for you As an adult, let alone if you're a baby, you just need to ask questions. I'm just asking questions. That's what you got to do. You need to question everything. Trust but verify. Find a better way. Find a natural way. Try to avoid being on prescription pills as much as you possibly can. I know some folks can't. They have to do it. There's no other choice. I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't that situation. But we should do everything we can to avoid it as much as we possibly can. It'll be better for you, and it will be better for the healthcare system as well. You will be less of a burden on the healthcare system when you're not reliant on prescription drugs. If you can find a way to do it, to fix your problem naturally. And if we can find a way to fix and cure the autism rate in this country, I think we should do everything we can to explore it and implement it. And I think this is one thing. And like I said, food, the moment your child can start eating real food, you should start mashing up red meat, steak, feed them steak and fruit and raw, like give them liver. I'm not saying raw liver, but cook up a little liver. Watch your baby light up when you give them some liver. I guarantee you, I have listened to doctors talk about how, they're the doctors that set the dietary standards for their clients' babies when they're born. They're the ones who birth the babies, and they're telling you, like, this is the diet we tell the parents to put the child on. Like, no sugars, no artificial sugars, no artificial dyes, no grain, just meat, fruit, vegetables. He's like, you give that baby some liver and watch that baby light up. They love it. They love it. And then statistically, as they eat that, they'll like to eat it as an adult. So many people are like, ew, liver, gross. It's like, yeah, well, you've never had it. Right. But if if you were eating it from the time you were a kid, it's going to be like normal to you. I've had a liver. I don't hate the taste of liver. I think liver tastes fine, especially if you cook it in some butter, a little salt and pepper. I actually don't like the texture of liver. So what I like to do is kind of combine it with something else because I think it's too mushy. It's just kind of off-putting to me. You see liver and you think it's going to have the consistency of steak. It's going to have like that kind of like that chew to it, but it doesn't. It's like, it's mushy. It's just like, it's kind of off-putting, but the flavor is fine. For sure. Anyway, folks, on that note, there you have it. And I'm going to post this in the show notes so you can see it and look it up for yourself if you're interested. Listen, take the politics out of it. We got to get away from this sort of tribalism of because Trump said it can't be right, or if Biden said it can't be right. Listen, if Dr. Fauci came out and said Tylenol causes autism, I would honestly believe it as much as I do now. I really would, because this is that pragmatic approach that I have to things, which is like, it probably does. At the very least, I'm entertaining it because Tylenol it's not a real thing. It's a synthetic painkiller. It's not, I didn't understand the deeper science behind it all. Like we just broke it down here in this email of how your body breaks down Tylenol and how it can't when you're a child, when you're a baby, and that causes sort of an issue. See, this is the deeper level. This is where, like, when you have a degree in medicine or you are practicing medicine, the details here. We can all be knowledgeable in these things, what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, what we should take, what we shouldn't take, the fact that something doesn't work, or the fact that something has negative side effects. We can all have a level of education in that and have a confidence in knowing what is good and bad, but we may not know the details as to why. When you turn on your car, if you hear a knocking sound, you say, that's not normal, right? So you take it to a mechanic and say, hey, my car is making a knocking sound. That's not good. The mechanic can tell you, oh, it's a loose rocker arm. Yeah, one of your rocker arms is loose. We need to tighten it up, blah, blah, blah. You didn't know that, but you were still smart enough to know that it wasn't a good thing. And that's the thing. This whole idea of people shutting us down or shutting you down because you have some basic level knowledge of what is good and what is bad. And they just go, oh, you're not a doctor. Shut up. It's like, does that change the fact that I was right or wrong? Is the sky blue? Is the universe vast? I'm not an astronomer though, but I can tell you that the universe is vast and is ever expanding, right? We know that because we can prove it, So my point is like, don't let folks shit on you because you're not a scientist or a doctor. We need to question these things. We need to have these conversations, and by all means, there's no harm in it saying, okay, well, next time I'm pregnant, I won't. My wife's pregnant. We won't take Tylenol. We'll avoid Tylenol as much as we possibly and physically can. It's just like the guy with the parasitic infections and treatment. He's not out there trying to take a piece of your brain or do electroshock therapy or do something ridiculously crazy that has massive side effects to you. He's treating people in a natural pathogenic way to cure a parasitic infection. The worst thing that's going to happen is it just doesn't work, right? It doesn't cure you. That's worst case scenario. You're not taking a part of their brain and making them brain dead like people wanted to do. People thought, here's the thing. People say, trust science, trust doctors. There was a time in this country where doctors thought lobotomies were a good idea. Just saying. So before you go on this blind sort of faith in people, you should probably think about that. And you should look at the history of where we have come and where we're going. I think the medical industry is amazing. I mean, they can do surgeries now with an incision the size of a pinprick. They have robotic arms that can just manipulate and cut and do everything it needs to do. If we can just stop from killing each other and destroying each other, and AI doesn't take over and kill us, there's no telling what modern advancements in medical technology will come around. But that doesn't mean that we should drop the ball on our day-to-day lives and not eat healthy, not exercise, not keep moving. Because the reality of it is the more that we become more technologically advanced, the sicker we've become. America has gotten sicker over the last 100 years, not healthier. And the reason for that is because of the nasty food we're eating, because we become so sedentary. People aren't moving around as much. Heck, I'm not moving around as much as I need to. I admit that. I need to get out and move around more. It's just the nature of our life. I mean, there's days where I sit behind a computer all day and type up estimates. I don't move. I just sit there. Click, 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 click. It's not natural. It's not good to do that. So I think it's great. I'm all for modern medicine. I'm all for the technologies and advancements in healthcare, but I'm also for being practical and going, yeah, we invented Tang because when astronauts go out in space, they have to have something to drink that has vitamins in it. But we don't need to drink Tang every day as humans here on Earth, Like let's dial it back. Maybe we get a real orange and we make fresh orange juice and we drink that. How about we try that? And then also, please don't put Tang in orange juice, like naturally pressed orange juice, in the same category. It's not. All right. It's just not. Yeah, there's medication to cure fat loss. There's GLP-1s and things like that now. They're not safe. Are they effective? For the most part, yeah, they seem to be. Does that mean we should use them? I don't think the risk is worth the reward. It's up to you. My point is, use some discernment. Think logically. Question everything. And don't be afraid to. Stand up. There's nothing wrong. You're not going to be a bad guy just because you ask questions. On that note, folks, thank you so much for listening to The Rant. I'm your host again, David King. I look forward to getting back here again soon. Be good. Stop taking Tylenol. Bye now.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.